If you're watching this, I'm assuming you've already completed these 3 first tasks, and now you're on to the hardest task, and I think this is the hardest by far. In this task, you're going to have to do something that's somewhat complicated. It's complicated enough that an ugly or an inelegant solution will be quite difficult to get working correctly. And so I hope that you find this to be a really instructive exercise in why managing complexity properly is super important. So I just want to first give a little picture of how you interact with the GUI. And so as noted here, what you should do is open the main class and click the run button. So when you do that, you should see a board pop up that has 2 tiles on it, randomly generated. And every time you run it, you'll see different tiles. Okay. Now, if you don't see any tiles, that's probably because you haven't finished those first 3 steps. So if the board's blank, make sure you're passing all these tests first. Okay. So now I'd like to actually interact with the game. If I press up, down, left, or right on my keyboard, nothing's happening. And that's because my tilt method does not do anything in my model class, right? So let me just write a little piece of dummy code. If I iterate over my board, something like this. All right, I'm not giving away anything important here. Okay, and then I do something silly, like let's just move that tile, or actually I'm gonna check if it's null. If board.tile c, r, make sure you have column row is not equal to null. Then I'm going to move that tile. So column, I'm going to move it to the top row, and I'm moving tile t. I guess I'm going to do tile t equals board tile cr. So all just stuff that the spec covers and the skeleton code covers. And so now, whenever I push any button, what it should do is iterate over the entire board and move every tile to the top row, row 3. Okay, so let's see if that happens. Okay. So I start the game, and I push left. Nothing's happening. All right. Let's try again. Let's see, what did I do wrong here? If the board tile is not null, let's move that tile. Seems like it should be working. I forgot to do one important thing. I need to also say changed equals true. So if you look at the spec, it says there are some important things you need to do. In particular, you need to set the changed local variable to true. We also need to update the score. So hey, let's just update the score. Score plus equals 7. Okay. So if I run this code and I push left, it goes up. Everything goes up. And no matter what I push, everything just gets moved to the top row, right? And so this code is not correct, and it's behaving weirdly, and you know there's very weird stuff going on here. But you can see what's basically going on is I'm moving everything to the top row, and the board class is handling that in strange ways. And notice every time I push a button, also the score is getting increased. Okay? So by more than I would expect, by 45. Right, okay. So every time I push a button, it's iterating over every tile that exists, and it's adding 7 points. So right now I have 5 such tiles, so my score will go from 1155 to 1190, which is 7 times 5. That's 35, gives me 1190. Okay. So that is an example of code that does not work, and you need to write code that does work. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick, what I call a hello world program. It just does the basic task, in this case, incorrectly. Okay, so you're gonna have a lot of work ahead of you to write something that actually does the right thing, not the wrong thing, as I just showed. Okay, so good luck. My main thing I wanna reiterate from the lecture number 2 is that you should really think about what helper methods are useful to you. And if you think in terms of really good helper methods, I think you'll have a much more pleasant time with this project. Don't be afraid to write something that kind of works and then delete all your code and start over again. Because the hard part's the thinking, not the programming. And so if you find yourself backed into a corner where you have tons and tons of weird if statements or whatever, it's really probably time to delete your existing code and just start over again. And that's fine, you learned something. It wasn't useless that you wrote the code that you deleted. You learned something about complexity, about your approach, and you'll move on to the next approach. I'll say that I think I probably, when I first did this project way back in the day, in fall 2014, I think I probably went through 2 or 3 totally distinct approaches before I felt like I found the one that I thought was the right helper methods that made it beautiful. So good luck to you, and enjoy the rest of the project.